Welcome to Reasoning Sessions. I'm your host, Malik Muhammad. As usual, we thank you for investing your time with us, and we're never going to disappoint you with our guest panel. To my left, we're blessed to have Primrose Granville. In my humble opinion, viewers, presenter extraordinaire, BBC, Ujima Radio Bristol, and so many other things. And when it comes to athletics and Key Club, they're synonymous with this wonderful lady to my left. In front of me, Tony Jackson, lifestyle manager, fantastic butler, worked with some of the best in the business. He also is a founder member of the Mayfair Butlers Consultancy. And to my right, I am blessed with the lady who I call La Comedienne, Glenda Jackson herself. Welcome, Glenda. Welcome, Tony. Welcome, Primrose.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Reasoning Sessions. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was thinking, just as we were about to begin this edition, I was thinking about China. And the reason for that is that in Dominica, in Barbados, in Jamaica, indeed, over most of the world, China has some level of influence, whether it be financial or cultural. And as we're aware, it's just been the 50th anniversary now of the Cultural Revolution. I mean, how have you found, Tony, in terms of China's influence worldwide? What are some of the things that come to your mind?
Well, it's good question that you've asked, and it's quite timely because I was just watching a documentary about red flags and how certain things move with the paradigms. And basically, we all know that America has been one of the biggest superpower and influence in the world. People are surprised to know now that there's a lot of African countries that actually have to learn Chinese in the school. I don't know if you know that.
True.
But they were also, on this program, was explaining that some of this, the way how superpowers they sometimes seem to implode on themselves when they actually take advantage of the power that they have and the influence that they can have. And this could be one way that China does as well, because not many people know that China actually has bought up a lot of Americans' debt that the Americans have. And so economists have actually said that when the dollar falls, so it's a question of when it falls, not if it falls, maybe China will also have a serious problem with their own economy. And basically, this could be another red flag, rather than red flags that we probably know about as far as terrorists. This could be a financial red flag, which could cause catastrophic consequences around the world. That's how I looked at that.
Primrose, the Chinese influence.
Well, the Chinese influence is very, very strong. You just have to look at any calendar. You see the Chinese New Year listed. It is a season that is celebrated. It's almost as if wherever you go in the world, there is a Chinatown.
Yeah.
So Chinese culture is everywhere, and it seems very simplistic, because when you think about food and restaurant, but it isn't simplistic at all. It's actually very powerful, because wherever you go, you can actually hunt down and find a Chinatown. And I think that's very orchestrated. But it's very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Glenda, when you think about the whole Chinese influence, I mean... Weave. Okay, so...
Good hair.
You'd expand for us. I tell you. Yeah, because the thing is, in terms of products, you know...
Good hair, yeah, and the makeup, very good. I don't really know much about, you know, Chinese. I know good food and, you know, they do nails, they're good, you know. So I'm not really into that, you know. I know they're good at their technical things and their gadgets and all that. But when you think, when I hear Chinese, I think, good weave.
Yes.
Good, nice hair.
Yeah. I guess the point being made here seriously is just that the influence, the products, and the influence and the economic power, the leverage that comes with that.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, if I could just add, is that the Chinese have actually got one, it's like similar to Google, isn't it? They've got one of the biggest search engines and stuff. So we could say that maybe in the next 10 years, we might be using their search engine rather than Google. Because if there's such a large influence, then I think things like that, we might have to start thinking of maybe using Chinese Windows.
You plan to learn Mandarin?
I'm planning to learn Mandarin.
Why is that?
Well, when I was in high school, my Spanish teacher asked me nicely to leave her class because I was so good at it. And I still regret to this day not learning a foreign language, and I think I should do Mandarin.
I want to
Yes.
do with you then.
Yes, so
yeah.
then you're going to be the Mandarin.
Mandarin,
blender.
yeah.
No, the thing is, it actually makes sense.
So we're hating, because we be talking different languages.
Yeah.
You ain't got a clue what we're saying.
Well,
you go.
does anybody here speak any other language other than English?
Well, I speak patois.
Okay.
What patois though?
I speak Jamaican patois.
Cockney.
Cockney. All right. Tony, anything other than English?
No
Or any other speaking other English? No comments.
No standard.
Not speak English. The thing is, it's interesting, Linda, that you mentioned in terms of when we're talking about products, and you mentioned good weave or good hair in terms of China.
Yes.
And it reminds me of an article I read recently, whereby there were issues concerning the choice of hairstyle for black women within the work environment. Now, I am not in a position to comment on that by virtue of gender, nor being follically challenged. However, what's your opinions on the whole thing of the weave, the hairstyle? Does it matter in terms of presentation, in terms of work?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I've got a wig on myself, but
Yes.
but I've got hair underneath here.
Yes.
But sometimes it's easier, quicker, and there was something that Beyonce had said once. She said when she's on stage, she's Sasha Fierce.
Yes.
And it's true, because I'll be at home, just Glenda, mum, next door neighbour, and my neighbour makes me laugh because she'll see me in the garden, all right, and then when she sees me, she's like, oh my God, I've got the blonde wig, and I've got the other wig, and this was a wig, I don't even know what it was like. I chop it in the night, and I just sit there going, I don't like this style. And it's just how you feel. It's a presentation. I mean, the article where the woman said that where she works, they were saying that they want her to not have her natural hair, that she should have weave. Sometimes I've seen people with natural hair and it's untidy.
Yes.
If it's an untidy one, if it's just one that you woke up and you do that and you go there and you put a little comb through it, then obviously that's not presentable for anything, for teacher or whatever. But if it's nice and tidy and combed, this is your hair. The reason why I started to wear wigs is because I had cancer. And
How you know?
I'm cool.
Yeah?
Cool.
Give thanks.
And I wore it because I was getting ready, because they said that my hair, one of the first things they say is your hair is going to drop. So I was getting ready because I wasn't going to walk around, start saying nothing about bald people, but it's all right for man.
No offense taken.
Yeah, no, don't take it.
We're fine.
I wasn't ready. I felt my head, can you imagine me bald, big head, and no, it's too much like a bald.
Okay.
So I thought, no, you know what? Let me wear thing, and I got ready. But the other thing is my hair grew. I got no hair, I got no eyebrows, even though they look good.
Yes.
But I've got no eyebrows because I lost body hair. But the hair, I've got a lot of hair. But it's just to think of what I'm going to do with it in the morning. And I think weave is for some. There's weave. I don't like a weave. I had a weave and it was the hottest thing ever. And I remember getting it done in the morning, and I said to her, I want that style. It was a Rihanna style, a nice little short cut.
Okay.
And this one was sewing forever. She was just sewing. I'm like,
So-
Rihanna's got a little haircut, and there's me with this woman just walking around.
Yes.
And she was sewing. When she come out, I looked like a yeti. I was underneath this thing, and I said to my friend, I can't breathe. I couldn't breathe. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was clipping, because I actually couldn't breathe. It was stopping me from things. So I wouldn't wear a weave. I would wear a wig, so I can change. But each their own. Your hair is flat, twisted. You like that. And it's easier for you, and you're a busy woman, and I'm not busy.
Well, for me, for a long time, I relaxed my hair when I was a teenager. My mother never wanted my hair relaxed at all. She said that she didn't want it relaxed. And I remember my godmother saying, I'm going to take you to the hairdressers and get your hair done. And I was so excited.
Yes.
And she said to me, your mother can always vex, but she can't take it off. And so I wore relaxed hair for a long time, and I wanted to go natural about 10 years ago, but I kept thinking, how am I going to look after this hair? Because I can't comb hair. I was one of those children whose hair was combed for them, and then I had it relaxed, so I never learned how to comb hair, and I have a son. So I didn't have any idea, but last year a friend of mine did something to my hair, and I thought, wow, and she said, you could go natural. And I'm like, really? You think? And I thought, well, who's going to look after it? And she said, I don't know, I don't live in England with you, sorry. And I have two very good friends who help me to look after my hair, and they do most of the styles. Miranda, big ups to you. But if I didn't have help, I probably couldn't do it. But as you say, to each their own. I would never wear a weave because I just think it's too heavy and there's just too much going on. And I couldn't wear a wig because I don't like anything on my head.
There you go.
You know, as a baby, I used to pull the hat off and throw it away.
Right.
You know, so every now and then I go to church and I find every ingenious way to wear things on my head that look like a hat but isn't a hat. And as soon as I get out, it's off. So I can't have anything on my head. I don't even like hair clips and stuff in my head because it's weight.
Wow.
So I couldn't do it. But sometimes they look ridiculous.
Yeah.
What I can't cope with is the weave that looks like it's been done by a carpenter. I can't cope with those weaves.
By a carpenter.
Yeah, because they just, you know, they look
The
like they've been
skills
nailed.
of the hairdresser are
Looks
not
like it's
necessarily
been
that
nailed in
experienced.
rather than, you know, the sewing. Because it's a skill, you know. Putting a weave in is an absolute skill. And I have a friend that runs a salon that specializes in weaving. And I stand there and I watch those girls sewing that hair and turn a head into a masterpiece. It's not cheap. It's not cheap.
You see, and that's what ties into the whole economic angle as well.
It's £500 for a good weave.
And
Indeed.
1,000 if you really want to look.
1,000.
Whatever. Apparently you can put it on your head. I don't know what anyone could say to me and say this hair is the best hair in the world. And if you pay me £1,000, I would look at it and I think, you know what I can do with that £1,000?
You know how many wigs I could buy?
My wigs cost me £20.
Yes.
They ain't real. They start frizzing, you know, where there was no frizz, right? That's why I think this was long and now it's this like I cut the frizz off. I wouldn't pay that much money, but there is women out there that pay a lot of money for somebody else's hair. Do you know it's someone else's hair? The hair is coming from.
Well, if it's made in China, it's not
They-
somebody else's.
Here. Yeah.
It's
not real.
Yeah, but usually they take it from the Indian people and they sell it. So you've got
Yeah,
real
that's
somebody's
quite young.
own hair to put bread on their table to
Yes.
make you look nice. You know
Which
what I mean?
comes back to that whole economic argument.
So that's why I don't
You
really
know?
buy real hair because even though I've got my own kind of I like my wig and everything.
Yes.
A real hair. If someone gave it to me and so they bought it for me, I'm kind of like, why? What do you want? Don't get me wrong, I'll take it. But for me to actually hand over, knowing where that person got it, because I've seen it on telly, they let the children grow their hair long, then they cut it off, and then they bring it for you to put on your head, and you don't even look good anyway. Some of them don't, you know.
No, I get your point. I mean,
they're wasting
Tony, you're a lifestyle manager. You know, in terms of appearances.
There's quite a few aspects here. It's personal decision of people. There's the economic decision. I don't know if you know that Chris Rock, who's an American comedian, did a very good documentary.
Hilarious.
And people don't realize that in America it actually caused quite a bit of controversy.
Because that's what they live
And
for. Don't they?
I saw this program, Malik, and it had, especially talking about Afro-American people or people in the black community, women. Because I understand women's hair. I lost my part of my hair, and it was a big change because I had the Prince hairstyle, I had the Michael Jackson. So it was something that, it didn't devastate me because it came to a point where I thought it could have been a leg. And it wasn't. And I kind of ended up shaving my hair accidentally because when I was shaving my hair accidentally, I took too much at once and I just went.
Balance it.
And when I did it, I actually looked in the mirror and I thought, there was me.
Absolutely.
So the controversy about African American people or black people buying this kind of thing, and in America, they also showed that you can pay by payments because you say it cost a lot of money. And they had an old grandma who actually, she puts a payment down.
Wow.
So we're now getting into debt, some of our people over there, in trying to do this thing. But what I'm worried about, because I'm a lifestyle manager and I also very spiritual kind of person, is finding yourself and your purpose. And if we have to feel that we have to change our way to be accepted, as you said, the lady with the maybe afro hair or nappy hair wasn't accepted in the corporate. Well, I don't have any hair and I deal with high profile people and I didn't make that an issue. I actually made that who I am and I serve myself.
Is that because you're a man though? Why we can get away with that?
Right. Now, this is where I'm thinking that we maybe can get away with it or whatever. That might be another subject, but what I find is that another thing, talking about weaves, is the cleanliness of how people should look after their weave. Now, being bald, you might think, well, that's easy, but I actually shave my head every day, and I actually make it so it's presentable, and you've got to be careful because you can nick yourself and stuff, and so it's all about how you want to be perceived as well. If you're going to wear your afro hair, it can be done, it can be clean. It's just like when we had the Rastafarians with dreadlocks. I know that's a religious stuff, but you know, you came across people who was like wow, that's like a carpet on your head. And there was
Yes.
other people
Yes.
who, like, you could tell, you know, Rastafarians, the true Rastafarians are one of the most cleanliest people you can meet. And it's just understanding and accepting that. Unfortunately, I don't feel that we should have to change everything about our identity to be accepted into corporate.
That is-
Because why I say that is that you can go into most hotels in central London, Mayfair, and you will usually find the receptionist talking with a very strong German accent
Yes.
or very strong French accent. It's very rarely you might go to a hotel in central London and see the receptionist talking with a very strong Nigerian accent.
Okay.
They will tend to be told, well, you know, you can't really do this, or you
accent's
know.
too strong.
And if I may, I say, being in this kind of environment for 20 years,
Yes.
I was not because of my hair. It was just
Yeah.
because who I was and what I represent. I was told time again, well, you're not quite ready. But, you know, blah, blah, blah. And when you tell me no, that's when I reject it. And I think that we have to, but we have to make a strong statement. So the way I combated anything, whether it was racism or any other isms or
Yes.
stereotypes,
Yes.
was that I tried to be from the background the best. I dressed the better than the manager.
Yes.
I turned up before the manager and make sure that if I had hair, it was clean. If I had shoes, they were clean. So I feel that sometimes it's basically you have to look within yourself to find your true identity, and we must not fit in, because individuality is actually the key to your success as well.
But this hair issue, the article you're talking about, they were discriminating against her by saying that her afro didn't suit the workplace.
Yeah, the corporate
And
image.
I think about an experience I had in one of the top corporate organizations.
Yes.
Where the lady had bright red, frizzy
Red.
hair. Bright red, frizzy hair, and I wanted to hold her
Okay.
and, you know, put some moisture on it so that it didn't look so wild. But she was a receptionist in you know, I'm not going to name the company, but it was one of the you'd call it one of the Fortune 500.
500s.
And she was well dressed and well put together, but the
Yes.
hair was not happening. She was white.
Yes.
I would compare her hairstyle to that of an afro.
Okay.
She was unkempt. So, you know, you can't say to a black woman, your afro is offensive. That's telling her hair
Yeah.
is offensive.
Oh, she is.
That's a personal part of her. And I think we need to get past, you just said it, we have to get past the part where we change how we look.
Yeah.
That is why we started relaxing our hair in the 1920s, because we wanted to fit in. Do we have to fit in, or do we stand out? To each their own, as Glenda said.
And you see, the interesting point here for me is that, bearing in mind what happened with the Chinese Revolution, whereby Mao Zedong decided that it was important to look at the cultural norms and set a standard for what it meant to be Chinese.
Yeah.
And look at China now. You know,
That's a good point.
it really makes you wonder sometimes when you think about the world
Yeah.
and how important it is. Yes, Glenda?
Going back when you said the lady paid the money, an article you sent,
Yes.
there's a lady saying that she paid, today the daughter is getting her hair done
Yes.
because she's just finished paid £1,000. So this means this woman's been paying money in the place all the time so that her daughter can get the hair. Not to say that they're doing it piece. So she's paid the first, and now the girl's getting the first black round. And the joke was, you know, I'm a comedian. The
Yes.
joke was that the girl said, "I look beautiful, lovely now." And I'm like, "No, you don't." Do you know what I mean? It's not just your hair.
No.
She's saying that she got the hair, so the hair makes her beautiful. And it's not.
That's sad.
It was sad that she thought by having this long hair, which I find black people with long hair looks a bit over the top. When it's long where I can sit down on it, you know, it's ridiculous. So this girl's got this long black hair. Her mother's sitting there. Mum just paid £1,000 talking about, that's the food money, that's the mortgage money. She could have got all this in the and the daughter's going, I get what I want because I want. First up, go and get your own hair. Number one, you're a big girl. And secondly, the hair, if you've got the hair thinking that's what makes you beautiful, it's all in the mind, because it isn't. There's a lot.
But issues.
Face,
See.
she does all this is what she's thinking, that
It's
the
in
one
the
piece
mind.
of hair.
It's in the mind. So, like you said, when
Yeah.
it's in the mind, because then you've got to ask yourself
Yes.
what the mind has been fed on and the images that child has been fed on. Because now you've got or people, or Caribbean people, or indigenous people trying to look probably more Western, not just by the weave, but by the eyes,
the blue eyes,
everything, the blonde hair. And we've got the European people getting Botox and stuff, and trying to get bigger ears and stuff. So we have to think we got two sick minds.
Yeah, of course.
And if you need two sick minds, then you just one or the other is too much on the other side. You have to have a balance, you know what I mean? To come
And you
together.
see, as you mentioned minds, I find it interesting because it could be that having that long hair was a state of bliss, a state of heaven for her.
Yeah.
You know, then when you're on stage, you know the power that makes you, how it makes you feel.
Lovely.
Right? Lovely. Tony, you know, when you have satisfied a client and on the consultancy, how that feels. Primrose, you know, when you have just presented a powerful program, a dynamic, intelligent program, how does that feel? So I was just wondering, as we wrap up, what does heaven mean to you? How that feeling? What does heaven feel like to you? What is
Wherever
heaven
I
to you?
am, at my mum's,
Yes.
watching my 86-year-old mum call me names, having my children around because they lived separate. So when we're all together,
Yes.
I feel that where I'm with good people, that's where I feel heaven is.
Give
That's where I
thanks.
am.
Tony, heaven for
Heaven
you.
is, for me, is very much the kind of feedback I get when I kind of realize that you've probably touched someone really deeply. You then start to feel that you're in your purpose.
Yes,
And sometimes
purpose.
it really blows your mind because it could be the smallest thing I've found out with clients and found out with children that I'm trying to help. And they say something, you know, and that state of feeling that it doesn't matter if you have money or nothing, that state that I just said, thank you, this has been really, when you did this, did you know what you mean? And I give you a quick example. I had a guest who had terminally ill cancer, and they came to stay at one of our hotels that I worked at. Anyway, he wrote me a personal letter. I have never been able to show that letter to her because it was a personal letter. And it really affected me, but I didn't realize that, well, that man was there to meet me. I was there to meet that man on that day because he said to me, when it happens, he will remember me being his butler and what I did because, and it really affects you. And I feel that's when I feel most in heaven because you feel that it's like they say the day you're born is the most important day, but the day that you find out your purpose is even more important.
Well, for me, heaven surrounds children. I have a 17-year-old son.
Yes.
And
See
at
that glow on
17,
that smile on your
at
face, Primrose.
17, they don't really want to get up close and personal anymore. Leave me
Yes.
alone. But my 17-year-old still comes into my room first thing in the morning. I want a kiss. I want a hug. And it's annoying sometimes, but it's heavenly all the time. And the second part of that is I do a lot of work with young people. I work with my key clubbers. They're mostly out there in Jamaica.
Of course.
And for me, they are heavenly.
Yes.
They're very much a big part of my heaven. And I love children. I absolutely love children. So having a youngster send me a text, good morning, Auntie Prim, I love you. That little moment. And when my son says the same words to me, I love you, that moment there, it's very heavenly. Yeah, it's beautiful.
What about yours?
It's true.
What is your heavenly then?
Well,
You know,
I try to be present in every moment. You know?
Okay.
So it's for me right now, this is heaven.
Yes.
Being fully present.
Okay.
You know. So listen, Glenda, Tony, Primrose. You know, when you talk about time flies when you're having fun.
Yes.
Glenda, what is your favorite sound as we close?
Oh, favorite sound?
Your favorite
It's
sound.
laughter, when people are laughing. When they're laughing at a joke that
Yes.
I just done and I wasn't sure if it was going to go down.
Good.
And they're just laughing and
That's the reassurance.
Yes.
That's like amen, witness,
Yeah.
spirit.
Favorite sound.
just laughter.
Tony, what's your favorite color?
My favorite color is black
Okay.
because, seriously, because I feel best in it. I like wearing black, and I think black is the origin of everything.
Yes. And Primrose, your favorite color and sound?
My favorite color, undisputed,
As she
is
laughs
purple.
beautifully. Purple.
I fell in love with the color
Okay.
purple when I discovered Prince.
Well,
as a youngster.
Absolutely.
And everything I had was purple or Prince themed.
Yes.
My favorite sound, and I don't hear it very often, but it's when I'm in Jamaica and it rains.
Oh, yeah.
I like the sound of rain on the leaves in Jamaica. Because where I live, there's a lot of trees, and there's a banana tree right outside my bedroom. And when it rains, I can hear the sound of the rain on that leaf, and that's a sound that I absolutely love, and I memorize it.
The sound of rain on
What
leaves.
about you? You got to sit down up in our business. What's your favourite colour?
I will draw attention to my amethyst.
Okay, that's a colour.
And say that
Good
my
colour.
favorite color is any shade or combination of violets, purple, mauve,
And your sound.
anything like that. So my favorite
Not betraying your
sound.
school at all, are you?
Not at all, not at all. And my favorite sound is the sound of a child's laughter.
There you go.
That's good.
Viewers, we thank you for joining us on this Riesling session. On behalf of Primrose Granville, Tony Jackson, and Glenda Jackson, and of course, the team here at idyllic.com, and our creative director, Trevor Fogar Griffiths. Thank you for being with us. Until the next edition, take the best care, and remember to live authentically. Give thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.